The equipment used for the session will be a ball for each player. Players know to bring their own ball, but there will be spares there in the event we need them. 2 colours of pennies, that's actually to allow 3 teams. Players at practice wear a standard black uniform, training uniform, so 2 extra colours will allow me to have 3 teams, which will be needed later in the session. Adequate cones, and a set of 8 hacky sacks for some footwork we're going to do down here. The session actually begins, the girls have a pre-routine that they do before the session begins. They're 12 and 13 year olds, so they're not quite at the age, strictly speaking, of the FIFA 11 Plus, so we've modified that a little so they have their own slightly changed version of that, slightly smaller. We've taken out parts of the middle part, the planks and things like that, and reduced them, and we'll add those when they get to the appropriate age for those, as recommended by FIFA. So that will get them to the start of the session at 5 o'clock, having already done that kind of warm-up and be prepared for physical activity, so we can get straight into having a ball at our feet. The footwork doesn't fit wonderfully with the rest of the session in terms of we're doing the attack to defence transition phase, but footwork's something that there were some failures within the club with this particular group where their footwork didn't develop to the degree you would think a team of this level did, so we highlighted that very early, and it's something we're spending the first couple of months of our time together trying to improve and get it to the level you would expect. So it's a medium-term focus for us. So the session will begin in pairs. One player will have a soccer ball, the other player will have a hacky sack, and essentially what's going to happen is we're trying to get players to play much more with head up, so the hacky sack is for the one player to feed and the other player catches while carrying out whatever footwork, toe taps, tick-tocks, and then you obviously develop that into more complicated. In this case, the moves we're going to work on are a scissor and a shimmy. So out of a foundation, a tick-tock, whatever you want to call it, they will be doing something more complicated and trying to maintain eye contact as they do that. That's the first part of that. The second part of footwork, this is very static, this is very on the spot, lots of good stuff in there, 2 feet, heart rate moving, but it is static. So the second part is here, and what happens here is it's a 20-yard setup with 3 players. Each player has a ball, and the objective here is we're actually going to be moving with the ball and doing some footwork with the ball. Again, eyes should be up. You know, we're gonna stress distance of ball front body, which is a big thing. The language we've been using with this particular team is get the ball out of your halo, and that's just to avoid having the ball stuck under their feet. So in this exercise, 2 players at one end, a player at the other end, and a physical line. So in my case, to achieve the physical line, I actually put a cone 10 yards from the 18, another cone 10 yards into the 18, and they've got this physical line as their reference point. The exercise begins, A begins with a dribble, and nobody else moves just yet. When A gets to the halfway line, okay, that would be the 18, B begins their dribble. So somewhere in here, A and B come together. At that point, footwork takes place. It might be just a deviate to the right, a cut to the right. Eventually it's going to become, since we're working on the scissor and the shimmy, it's going to be a left or a right scissor, a left or a right shimmy, and obviously it has to be the same foot. So one will go off to one way and continue, the other one will come off this way and take up the spot on this cone. When this player then gets to the halfway line, that releases player C, and player C comes out and it continues. So it's ongoing, it's active, there's very little stop time, and they're doing a move on the move, having to have their head up, and they're doing it against a passive opponent, someone that's coming towards them, but isn't actively trying to get the ball. So, emphasis we've mentioned, we're working on these 2 particular moves. They will vary as we're trying to catch up some things that didn't happen as well as they should have in Zone 1. We're working on vision, that's going to be stressed all the way through, but very specifically they're having to think about it when catching something while doing footwork. They're working on having the ball out the feet. I mentioned the language of get your ball out of the halo, and we're working on the speed and mechanics, doing things as quickly as we can, and for tonight working on these 2 particular moves and trying to make sure the mechanics of those are as they should be.